Berserk, the Lost Children arc, chapter Queen, through the world of winged things. Where we left off, Guts had just got done massacring a whole lot of little tiny wannabe fairies, just swatting them bad boys out of the air. But just when we thought the coast was clear, the Queen Fae thing came on down, and now some trouble be a-brewing. Before we get on into this though, I would like to say this is going to be a little bit shorter of a video today because I'm just having some mental health stuff and need a little bit of a break. I hope that's all right, but I did still want to get you some Berserk content, so we're trucking on through. And on top of that, I slightly changed the camera and lighting angle, as well as rearranged my bookshelves. Is it better? Is it worse? Let me know. But continuing the Berserk story, we have the Queen saying, "You're really strong, mister, even though you're human. How come?" And I can actually answer that question for you. He's been through everything, so that's how and why. But we see Puck kind of going, "That's an elf?" I'm trying to convey the disbelief that I see as present in his face here. But as this Queen Bee, as Guts refers to them, is talking with their little tiny buggy boys, we see that Puck is like, "These aren't elves. In fact, but before Puck can do anything, this Queen Bee attacks, and we see them dust Guts with a whole lot of some form of powder. Puck is trying to wave Guts off to stop the attack, but Guts, of course, being Guts, is like, "Shut up, go away, stop, I'll kill you too!" Which, Guts, don't kill Puck. If that happens, I won't stop reading, but stern warning, sir. But Puck does finally manage to get through to Guts and say, "Look, these aren't elves or little demons, it's children. It's the missing children," which I can't believe I didn't call. It's literally called the Lost Children arc, and I was like, man, where are all these children? Cute little flying childlike things. Where are the children though? But during this back and forth, we see that Queen Bee sees Puck talking with Guts, and they comment, "Don't go talking with humans on your own like that. That's who we call Peekaf, the outcast." To which Puck goes, "Peekaf, what?" Puck is just really confused for this arc, and it's really funny. But we see Jill have a substantial reaction to this, more on that to come, before the fight kind of continues, because the Queen Bee target Pucks and yells, "Peekaf gets punished along with the humans!" Puck, though, seems to not have the same hesitance of killing the Queen Bee, only with the other little fairies, as Puck is shouting from Guts' shoulder, "Kill her! Shoot her down!" But Guts seems to be struggling, and that's because the form of poison is taking over. And he almost loses to Hax here, but Jill steps in and goes, "Stop it, Rosine! It's you, isn't it?" To which the Queen pulls up and seems to have a very strong emotional reaction to, and even comments, "Jill?" before flying off and leaving Guts on their own. Guts then does fall down, obviously struggling with these hacks. It's his one weakness. He's got a lot of physical stats, but when it comes to alternative attacks, Guts is vulnerable. Important note. Guts comments that yes, the dust definitely was poisonous and he was clumsy enough to fall victim to it. He is able to stand, but the villagers then come forward and shout, "The winter provisions," because he burned down that massive storage place. Oopsie. "Was it you? Did you do this? Thomas, you used Thomas like that," talking about how Guts put a child on the end of his sword and lured the elves with it, which is still the funniest thing maybe to ever happen. Guts begins laughing at this though and comments, "You people make me laugh. When the kid ran out, did even one of you unlock your door?" To which all of them are like, "It's not relevant." Yeah. But the villagers come back with, "In any case, you will return those children over to us. Jill, Thomas, come here." Thomas begins going along, but Jill stays alongside Guts. The barn collapses behind them though, and reveals a massive pile of burned child corpses. Which means Puck's theory is absolutely right. The little buggy boys were actually children that had been transformed in some way into these beings being controlled by that Queen Bee to attack, but once they die, they all turn back into children. But I have one question. Guts also killed a bunch of these that aren't burned back in the town that he just swatted with his sword. So my question is there now just a bunch of like mushed dead children littering the streets of this town? Fucking Berserk. "Oh, Billy slept in late today. Better open the door and see what's going on outside." But as the people are seeing a pile of dead children from where Guts came out, and Guts standing there very vulnerable. He's like, oh no, I need to do something. So Guts takes a rather drastic action, grabs the teenage, I believe, Jill, and holds a knife to her throat and is saying, change of plans. How about everyone steps aside and lets me go? Which I don't know if they would have stopped him. They probably would have tried to. I'm not sure. Like, they know those were the fair... Do they know? I'm not sure. This is a really strange hostage situation Guts just got himself into. Puck has exactly my reaction during this, though, and is like, wait a minute, what are you thinking? You're pissing them off even more here. Quit rubbing them all the wrong way. To which they respond, an elf! Is he really on their side? Which, like, dude, no, what are these? I get how they're confused, and like, just take 5 minutes to think about it. It's clear Guts wasn't on their side. You didn't know it was children either, but Guts, like, you did just chill a bunch of children. Maybe don't hold a knife to a kid's throat. This is not good for anybody here. God. Puck begins to act as the negotiator, though, and is saying, everyone, please stand back. He's wounded, so it'd be really dangerous to approach him. Which is really funny, because it's basically like a bear got out at the zoo, and there's an attendant who's like, everyone back up. It's a bear. We do see one man try and sneak up behind Guts with an axe, but Guts just turns around and puts Jill in the way, which causes the guy to stop and makes me go, would you have actually let Jill take that axe to the face? I don't... Man, Guts, you need to calm down. The guy comments, though, like, you brute to Guts, when it's like, you almost just stabbed him in the back. Everyone here sucks. Everyone. Guts does manage to take his hostage through the crowd, though, and start wandering off, and we even see Jill's father, like, look at her being taken hostage and just decide not to do anything because, you know, fuck that guy. But after they get far enough away, Guts does let Jill go and just says, go home. Puck, not a fan of this, says, just go on home? You put a knife to a girl's throat. She's bleeding. To which Guts snatches Puck and just, like, shakes him over her wound because of elf dust and is like, now she's not. Problem solved. Which, he's absolutely right. That is problem solved. Good job. Great problem solving skills there. Jill offers to go as well, saying, that girl, that big elf, she might be my friend who vanished a long time ago, so... And Guts cuts her off saying, so, what'll happen? Give it up. As you saw, she's not human anymore. I'm about to go kill that friend of yours. If you want to come with me, what'll happen? Stay away. This ain't some kiddie game. And I quite enjoy this as a characterization moment for Guts because, like, that's him to a T. In so many other protagonists' hands, they'd be like, that's my friend, and the protagonist would be like, oh, come along, we'll try and fix. Guts is like, no, I don't care. I'm gonna kill him. This is a demon. This is the end of it. I'm just gonna go kill this thing. Go away. And in any other world, I would think Guts is doing the wrong thing, but this is the world of Berserk, and die. So seeing this girl like being like, oh, I'll come along on this dangerous journey, of course Guts is gonna be like, absolutely not. You'll just die. Go home. Because everyone can die here. I haven't reached the end of the story. I still think she actually will. And that's the success of Berserk as a story. It gets to a point where you as the reader are agreeing with the absolute asshole Guts as he's sending a teenager to walk home alone in the most dangerous world ever, because you're just like, yeah, I mean, that's dangerous to go home walking alone, but it's even more dangerous to come along with this guy. And he did kind of need to take a child hostage to get out of there. So I'm siding with the child hostage taker. Berserk. But we see Jill has a contemplative moment about her life and how basically things are going to go back to the way they've always were if she goes home, so she decides to follow on after Guts, as is expected. Puck is wanting to take a look at Guts' injury and also mad at him for what he did to the child, and it comes to a point where he's saying, come on, let me see your wound. But Guts turns away. Puck responds, that does it. What the hell's your problem? Guts says, I'm only going to say this once. I got no recollection of making you my pet. Quit buzzing around me. I'm sick of it. Puck thinks I'm not a pet, but then tries to turn on the charm saying, hey, it's gotta be said. Without me, this story'd be way too dark. You gotta have color in your life. Which is breaking the fourth wall a little bit. And while I'm starting to enjoy Puck more and more, that isn't a thing in the tone of Berserk I want to see happening more. So I'm hoping there's not a trend of Puck breaking the fourth wall or coming close to breaking the fourth wall. Guts has no time for that and says, I thought I told you before, seeing elves makes me want to vomit. It makes me want to crush them. Which, to Puck's credit, the response is pretty ballsy, saying, don't think you can win forever. I can at least take a finger down with me. Yeah, you can, Puck. Yeah, I believe in you. Guts throws Puck to the side, leaving without him. And this is like so clearly, obviously, Jill's gonna come along and pick up Puck that I'm actually left wondering if Guts is calling this, and that's why he's deciding to push away Puck until he's left behind to watch over watch over Jill that he knows will be tailing him. Because we keep seeing these glimmers of Guts having the responsibility or the wherewithal to definitely take measures to still save innocents and those around him, no matter how hard of an exterior he puts forward. And so it's kind of in this gray zone where I'm just not entirely sure if it's just like, oh yeah, it's gonna be the typical beats you think it's gonna be, and it's purely because of narrative, or if it's actually a character decision coming from Guts, because it's like, duh, Jill's gonna come after you. She thinks you're going to go murder her friend. We cut to later in the evening though, as Guts is getting ready to go to bed, and we see he is preparing himself some food, drinking and eating a snake. And just as he's thinking it's gonna be a really particularly long, terrible night for him because he's poisoned, wounded, tired, and is about to have to fight a bunch more demons that are come to him at night, it gets worse because as his brand begins to bleed, we see the little disfigured form of the child him and Casca make in the fire, and then, oh, I am still surprised by the levels of depravity Berserk will go to, because the flaming corpses of the children from the warehouse Guts destroyed come back and are trying to kill him. So Guts before inadvertently killed the children, and now he must vertently murder the children. Oh my lord. And we see he accuses the demon that him and Casca made of bringing these children, and it's just, I need a minute with that. But Guts is left with no choice, and he begins re-butchering the children he's murdered once. He's a twice over child murderer, child hostage taker, child bait user. And yet he's the good guy. But he seems fine doing this, because as the conflict really gets going, he says, "You'd make me babysit brats all night while I puke up this blood? Fair enough. If it takes me all night to cough this stuff up, at least I'll be able to sleep like a log come morning." And, alright, that's... alright. But we cut to seeing Jill and Puck have obviously found each other and are following after Guts, and a conversation between them gets to Jill's motivations. And I really like this moment for her, because after Puck asks her, like, why are you coming along? You might regret this. She essentially responds, I'll regret it if I stay home and don't come along. I probably regret it if I come too. And I really like that for a minor character to have a moment of that strong of motivation and characterization. It's a little profound, and in a world this bleak, that kind of mentality is what leads to small chunks of good or progress being accomplished. So even if Jill does die, it feels like a service to her character to have her die in a way that it's her taking action and making decisions to go down this path, and I really like that. But they crest a final ridge and they come across Guts murdering flaming dead children. Is it murders? Polishing off, ending undead children is the phrasing I'll go with. And for some reason though, Jill and Puck get closer and closer while this is happening, close enough that some of the burning children even start coming after them. Of course, Guts intervenes and saves them, and there's a beat here that I'm not entirely sure what's happening, and I would like some clarification, because Guts tackles Jill and some of the flaming children begin piling on top of him. But before a lot more are able to get on top, he somehow just propels himself forward, and the sword is like positioned forward, and when he launches himself, it's positioned back. Did he somehow like leverage his sword to flick himself forward? I'm not entirely sure. It just falls into one of those beats where I'm like, I wish Berserk would occasionally slow down and show me a couple more details of the action. But he falls down a rather large mountain, at least far enough to get him away from the burning children. But we see as the morning comes, Guts says, "Move, you're heavy. The bug with you," which leads me to think, yeah, he was intentionally leaving Puck behind so Jill could find him. Like, oh, the bug with you, Puck is with you, because duh, I knew you'd find him. "Sprinkle his dust on me. I hurt myself on the rocks and can't move. Not that I want to, but oh well." He asks Jill, "Why'd you follow me?" Which I'm like, she kind of said that, but alright, let's get this exposition out of the way. Peekaf. Long ago in a village, there was a boy named Peekaf with pointed ears and red eyes. His parents loved him very much, but he was always bullied by the village children because of his eyes and ears. They called him Red-Eyed Peekaf and Pointy-Eared Elf. Peekaf thought, this isn't my home. These people aren't my real parents. Because neither Peekaf's father nor mother, nor even one person in the whole village had red eyes or pointed ears the way he did. One night, Peekaf snuck out of his house without his parents knowing. He went to find his own real parents and his own real world in which to live. He made his way alone into the forest where elves were said to live, where the grown-ups said never to go. Basically, this elf goes off on their own and finds out that when they were a baby, they were very sick, and as a result, their parents brought them to the woods where the elves were to be healed. The baby was healed, but as a result, they grew red eyes and pointed ears, making them stand out and be an outcast from the village they're in. But upon learning the truth of why they looked this way, the child tried to go back into the forest to find the people that helped them and maybe find a world they would fit into. After only being gone for a little bit of time, though, they returned to their village to see 100 years had passed. The story ends. Peekaf the outcast cried and cried, his red eyes swollen even redder. Guts comments, not much of a happy ending, and I'm like, Guts, do you know what story you're in? We're breaking the fourth wall here. But Jill continues, Rosine loved that story. In fact, she once told me, I'm just like Peekaf. Rosine was a girl 4 years older than me who lived across the street. To me, an only child, she was like a real big sister. Rosine was a little strange. She liked playing in the woods and streams like a boy would. She would do things like catch bugs and small animals to proudly show me. She had lots of junk, the kind boys would consider treasure. The oddest of all was an egg-shaped stone that looked like a human face, and she said she found it on a riverbank and always took good care of it. No. We'd play in the woods and streams so long that suddenly the sun would be starting to set. That kind of thing happened often. But when I think about it, it was because Rosine avoided going home. I didn't understand because I was so young, but Rosine's parents fought a lot. She was always the reason. She'd often have bruises on her cheeks and arms. At those times, she'd always tell me, Jill, the story of Peekaf isn't really right. In the real Peekaf story, it turns out he really is an elf. Even now, he lives happily with his real father and mother in the land of the elves. And to tell the truth, I'm just like Peekaf. I really belong in their land too. She'd turn to me as I looked serious and impressed and grin in a funny way, like she was forcing herself to be cheerful. Through some more storytelling, we learned that also Rosine may have been the result of some horrible things that happened to the village I'm not going to get too deep into, but the story finishes with one night Rosine came to Jill's window and said, Jill, this is goodbye. I'm leaving. Goodbye? Where are you going? Where else would I go? The Misty Valley. I'm going to the land of the elves. Farewell, Jill. I leave all my treasures to you. Rosine, farewell. The grown-ups searched the forest and mountains for days looking for Rosine, but in the end they weren't able to find her. Then, oddly enough, a few days later, her parents also vanished from the village, almost like they followed after her. There was a wooden box with all the treasures Rosine said were mine now, but looking through it, that strange stone was the only thing I couldn't find. Then, sometime afterwards, those elves started attacking the village. I didn't really understand being so young, but now I feel like I do a bit, how Rosine felt then. Puck then interjects, hey, that strange stone Rosine had, was it like this? Look, like this. And he holds up the Behelit. It's the same as hers. What is it? A freeloader at my place and a body pillow betch. Betch the Behelit. Guts intervenes, saying, this is a magic stone that summons angels who grant power to weak little humans. They might just be demons disguised, but something like that. Guts goes on to say that most likely Rose Helene sacrificed her parents as payment for being transformed into an elf, or at least the elf equivalent type being she is now. Guts then threatens Jill and tells her that she should leave. This is not a fairy tale. It will not have a happy ending, which is in a very metatextual way, I believe, Guts warning the reader of what's to come. Wouldn't know yet, but I'm terrified, and we see Jill as a negative enough reaction to this to try and slap Guts, which he easily catches, of course. But this conflict finishes. Kids have their own fairy tales. You want to escape? Stick to Peekaf. We then get the comedy from Puck going a little bit too far for me again, where he says, why's it gotta be this way? You keep going on about kids. We'll excuse her for being one, which I completely agree with. This is child abuse. I'll sue. Regulators are strict these days. If you keep doing what you please, we'll get banned. Hey, what you doing there? We see Guts then catches Puck and flicks him into some rocks, and we get some very visually funny panels of Puck pulling themselves from the rock and looking genuinely terrifying. I really do like this line from Puck to Jill, though, where he says, says, Jill, don't let what that rotten creep says get you down. Kids can't be blamed for being what they are. That's true for both you and Rosine. If you guys suffered for just being kids, then society's to blame. And I completely agree with that. Children should be allowed to be themselves, and society should not bully or punish them for that, as long as the kid is not harming themselves or others, etc., etc., etc. But we see that Rosine has actually found Jill and descends down now that Guts is gone. And Jill asks, Rosine? Rosine then comes and kisses Jill on the cheek and says, it feels like angels, Jill. The last panel we get this chapter is seeing Guts feel his brand begin to bleed and turn back around because he knows what has come to Jill. I'm going to end it there for my own sanity and because I have quite a bit to say there as well. I really do love the story of Rosine and how it clearly can be applied to so many different failures within our own society, or can just be taken on face value for just a child who's being abused and neglected and resented at home, and how they can run off. It's very similar to so many classic tales. There's also a few just smaller touches added to the panels here that are a great example of manga elevating the form of the story, and that comes specifically for me in having Rosaline, when she's running away, having her clothing a little extra torn up, a little more dirty. It makes me think something extra awful happened that night, and it plays in the wider morality of Berserk, where it's like, okay, she sacrificed her parents. How awful people were her parents? I just, how bad should I feel about this sacrifice? Puck is growing on me. I expect to not always love their comedy and humor, but in terms of the personality and balance they bring to Guts, it's actually fitting much more appropriately than when I was initially introduced to Puck. Maybe it's because I've grown to understand this world better, maybe it's because I've come to like the series more, but the dynamic between the two is something I'm definitely down to stick around with for the rest of this journey. The only thing I keep thinking of in comparison is it feels very much so like a Witcher short story, where there's also a lot of information and small details that tie into the wider plot, as often happens in Witcher. Berserk is kind of scratching the itch of the type of story now, as it's evolved, of what Witcher was to me at the time when I first got into it. My main concern in the post-Golden Age arc of Berserk was how I would feel the stakes be as high, be invested in the characters, and what I'm relieved to see is that I'm not, and they aren't. But what this first few steps after that incredible part of this story are a very confident reset, reestablishment, and I expect to become as invested as I once was, which is what I should have seen coming all along. I don't expect this Rosaline story to continue for too much longer, but I believe it'll be a really good setup for what is to come next. And in the meantime, I'm just more than thrilled to spend more time with Guts, Puck, and even now Jill, who hasn't had that much time but is a side character I'm emotionally invested in, and I really hope doesn't die. But this has just been your latest episode of a Berserk walkthrough. Thank you so much for everyone who joins to watch the uncensored version on Patreon. I fortunately have had the last one of these maintain its monetization status. This one I'm not sure, because I'm gonna have to censor a whole lot. Yay, having a naked main villain. Like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the Patreon if you'd like to support what I do here. And I got books, I got merch, and have a good one, y'all. Peace. And I'd like to record a special shout out to my latest high tier patrons: Alex SR, Scott Siegler, Ravina Lopez, Teal'Gi Kiwi, Horrid Blade, Jane Sorensen, Sheen Kerr, Mordred Rainbow, Noah Pope Joy, and Torvad.